Well, hello again, YouTube. It's Speedy Two Finger, and gee, this is a tough one. Theo Lengyel is the saxophone player for this band. Well, he was. They fired him almost 30 years ago, but he was on the first two major label albums, and I think pretty much everything before that, all the demos. He's credited on their first demo recording, Raging Rat of the Easter Bunny. He's credited at the bottom as sax and nose humming. Now, Theo Lengyel, when you read the story in the news, he was arrested for suspicion of murdering his girlfriend in California. And it's a tragedy. Of course, all respect to the victim and the victim's family. This is horrific. But coming out with the story in the news and being like, Mr. Bungle guy murdered his girlfriend, and then people in the comments saying, oh, that band, because that's what I saw. In one of the videos that was posted on Facebook about this story, in the video, they just say the guy was in this band, and he was. But he hasn't been in the band for 30 years, and he was never a main member of the band. He was never interviewed, as far as I know, maybe on Triple J Radio in Australia when they were all over there. That one interview where they're all in the studio, he was there. He was never credited for writing any of the songs, as far as I know. And you won't find a guy who's listened to more Mr. Bungle than this guy. I've listened to the music a lot. I've absorbed all of the music. And that band is three guys, maybe four if you count Danny. But it's Mike, Trevor, and Trey. It's the bass player, the guitar player, and the singer. And really, Mike gets most of the credit. So this poor woman, Alyx, and I'm going to have a hard time with her name. Herrmann is her name. Alice, she goes by Alyx. Kamakaokalani Herrmann. She was last seen on December 3rd. She was dating Theo Lengyel, who's the ex-saxophone. I believe he played clarinet and keyboards. She was supposed to board a plane on December 12th and fly to Hawaii, I'm guessing to celebrate Christmas with her family. And she had disappeared on December 3rd. So they filed a missing persons report. Theo Lengyel, her vehicle, her car was parked at his house, and he was not being cooperative. They had also tracked him, and he had traveled to Portland and some other places, so they were just like, it was fishy. He had shaved his head, and they ended up finding human remains. They found her remains. They're awaiting DNA testing. They found these remains in the park, a wooded area of Tilden Regional Park in Berkeley, and they have went on to arrest Theo Lengyel. So Lengyel left Mr. Bungle in 1996 after playing saxophone, clarinet, and keyboards on several recordings, including the band's 1991 debut album and their second album, Disco Volante, in 1995. He did not participate in the band's reunion tours, which began in the year 2020, or their third major label release, the California album that came out in 1999, I believe it was. Mr. Bungle was formed in Eureka, California in 1995 by high school friends, including guitarist Trace Bruance, bassist Trevor Dunn, and vocalist Michael Allen Patton, who went on to perform with Faith No More. Mr. Bungle experimented with funk, heavy metal, electronic jazz, and all kinds of other musical styles, gaining popularity during the alternative rock boom of the 1990s. Their bass player said in 2005 that Theo Lengyel had left the band on bad terms. We unanimously decided to go on without him because he wasn't growing with the rest of the band, and we were running out of things for him to do. He got pissed off, and I haven't heard from him since. Trevor Dunn, the bass player, wrote in response to a fan question. Now, Herrmann was a software engineer, worked and was educated in the California Institute of Technology, and worked in several San Francisco Bay Area companies over the years, according to her brother Eric Herrmann. She was also an avid athlete who competed international in outrigger canoeing. She loved the outdoors, was very active, very talented, and loved music. So it's obviously a tragedy. Hopefully this family can find some closure in the recent developments, and justice will be swift. But as a fan of this band, I just have to say that I never really thought about Theo Lengyel as part of Mr. Bungle. He was more of a sideman who was there in the beginning. It was 30 years ago when they got rid of him. So, are you guys seeing all this? I'll pop over so you can see what I'm looking at, because I've got a missing poster up here. Her vehicle was located in front of the home of boyfriend Milo. Based on his actions, he's a person of interest and has not cooperated with the police. So yeah, he shaved his head, and they've arrested him now. Here's his truck. The license plate on this truck says Uncle Dirt, UNCLDRT, or something similar. So there he is with his hair. There she is. You know, it's a tragedy when something like this happens, and I certainly don't want to be defensive of anyone or come off that I'm defending the guy. I'm not. If he's guilty, he certainly deserves to be dealt with swiftly. But over on Facebook, there was a story, there was a film, a video talking about this, and they in the video they just said, "Oh, he's Mr. Bungle guy, and he killed his suspected of killing his girlfriend." And in the comments, a lot of people were really taking shots at the band, saying they're nobodies, or they're horrible, or that they're they were just taking shots at the band, which really isn't fair, because Theo Lengyel was never a main player in Mr. Bungle. He was a side man. He was a sax player that came in and filled in a supportive role. He was one of the musicians who stood in the back. You know, it's like William Winnant. He's not really a member of Mr. Bungle. He toured with them. Maybe he even recorded some of that percussion on the album. Did he? I'm not sure. But I don't think you won't find a guy who's listened to more Mr. Bungle than this guy. Or be a handful of people maybe. Because I've listened to him a lot. I have a lot of respect for that band's music. But as far as the people in the band, it's not. I don't think of Theo Lengyel when I think of Mr. Bungle, because he was a side guy. They're not going to tell you that they're going to ex-80s rocker. He was a sax player. He's a jazz guy. He wasn't a rocker. Anyway, if we can we can hold off on taking shots at Mike Patton and his bandmates, and look at this realistically, that the guy, yeah, he was in the band 30 years ago. He was on some of the first stuff they did, and then they got rid of him. So if you have tickets, I know they're playing here in Milwaukee coming up here soon. You don't have to worry about getting murdered by one of the bandmates in Mr. Bungle. Although Guitar player Scott Ian was in a band called Anthrax, and their drummer was in Slayer. So you might want to be extra careful when leaving the venue. Make sure you're not being followed. Anyway, I don't want to make light of this. It's a horrible thing what happened. It's bad. Whenever, if you find yourself in some relationship where it's that bad, you need to get help. You need to get counseling. You need to get out of it. Do whatever you can, but violence is never. I can only imagine the horror that this poor woman went through. Can only imagine. And all respect to the family and to her memory. I certainly don't want to make any light out of any of this. That's not my intention. But as far as the entity, the band, Mr. Bungle, I've got to be really clear that Theobald Lengyl wasn't a main member of that band. Not for a long time. And even back then, he was in much more of a supportive role because he isn't credited for writing any of the songs, and he was never interviewed. As far as Mr. Bungle proper, the real band, it goes back to a core of 3 guys. And that's Trevor Dunn, Trace Bruance, and Mike Patton. And maybe their drummer, Danny Heifetz, although they had another drummer named Jed Watts, who is another, James Rotundi. He was in Mr. Bungle. He toured on the California tour. He was at all the Snowcore shows. But not a member of Mr. Bungle. Technically, not. Theo Lengyel, he was. He was in the band. But in a supporting role. So that was my point there. And not to joke around or make light or anything. I'm just here to separate the truth from making it out something that it really isn't. So you guys be safe. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Hug your pets. Have a happy new year and peace.